Hello and welcome. I'm Tafaragadamu. Meskel, a major religious holiday in Ethiopia, celebrated by Ethiopian Orthodox Christians to commemorate the discovery of the true cross, is recognized as one of the most important festivals in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. In a prelude to Meskel, bonfire, Demara, were lit this afternoon in many places across the country, including here in Addis Abeba's Meskel Square. What is the story here? My guest, Christine Chaillot, a Swiss and Orthodox, is the author of numerous articles and books on the Eastern Orthodox and Oriental churches in the fields of history, theology, and spirituality. Her recent book, The Traditional Teaching of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, was published last year. A very warm welcome to the program, Christine.
Good evening. Thank you for the invitation.
So this is quite an ancient tradition, right, within the Ethiopian Orthodox Church?
Well, as you mentioned, this is the Feast of the Holy Cross. And in your tradition, you know, the cross is so very important because, as Father Daniel Sefe Michael told me, it involves crucifixion, resurrection, as well as salvation, victory, freedom, reconciliation, love, eternity, justice, and peace. So, of course, this is at the heart of the Orthodox Church faith and tradition. And this explains also why this Feast of the Holy Cross, or Meskel, celebrated now in September, is so very important for the people of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. And of what I know, a relic of the cross was given to your Emperor David II in the 16th century. And this relic of the cross was put at Ambagishen. So, of course, this is one tradition of the origin of the feast, but the feast, of course, is much older because, as I said, the Holy Cross is so important in the Ethiopian church tradition. And as you know, there is a second feast of the cross, which is in March, that is Megabit for you. As for the Demera or bonfire, you know that everybody is enjoying this festival, which is taking place at the same time as Meskel, and it is in fact a stack of poles or bundled twigs erected to celebrate, and they put fire on it to celebrate the invention of the true cross.
And it comes right after the rainy season, right?
Well, yes, this is also, there is a symbolism in that for sure. But what is known, where does it come from? This the Feast of the Holy Cross, or it is the finding of the true cross by Empress Helena, who was the mother of Emperor Constantine of the Byzantine Empire. So it is said that she found this true cross in Jerusalem, and then the tradition says that she lit so many bonfires, you know, to celebrate the event.
To celebrate the event, or to try to find where the true cross was, because
after finding the true cross, then they had these bonfires lit to celebrate this event. And in fact, as you know, today the greatest event takes place on Meskel Square in Addis Abeba, and it's accompanied by processions, and there are thousands of people coming for this event, and in fact tourists are present. And myself, I attended this celebration, and it's for me, because I'm Christian and Orthodox, when I attended the festival some years ago, I found it more like a public feast than a religious feast, because, well, of course, the clergy was present, the patriarch was present, but it was more public, I would say,
Right.
than some very religious demonstration. But this is my taste.
This is
I would
practice.
say.
This well, yes, okay. This is practice or observed this way only in Ethiopia. It has become a uniquely Ethiopian tradition, right?
Yes, and it has been recognized, in fact, by UNESCO, as a church event and part of the patrimony of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So it is very important all around Ethiopia, but of course also in Eritrea, because in Eritrea, the church, the Orthodox Church, has the same culture, liturgy, faith, and spirituality. So it's very similar. And in fact, before we continue, I would like to read some sentences from the Degwa. This is a book of chant of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. And because the words are in Gaze, and the people, the faithful, don't understand very well these prayers, which are very beautiful and important. So I would like to read a few lines. Today, the cross is honored. The cross is our redemption. The cross is our strength. The cross is the salvation of our souls. By the power of his cross, let Christ protect us and let him open the eyes of our hearts. The cross is light. The cross is the tree of life. It is the tree of salvation. Your cross, O Lord, is the resurrection of the dead. Come, let us rejoice today, etc. With his cross, all these sentences are full of theology and are full of the faith of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Yes, and by reading these lines in English, I would like to encourage the people in Ethiopia, Orthodox or not Orthodox, to read these prayers carefully from the Degwa book, because as I said, unfortunately, people don't understand when they are prayed in Gaze language.
Right, exactly, because
so there should be translations into Amharic language.
Right.
That would be very helpful for the people to understand the beauty and the depth of these prayers.
Speaking of Gaze, which is pretty much like Latin in your part of the world, which no longer is used, it was taught in the traditional schools, the church schools, Ethiopian Orthodox church schools across the country, right? That was
in fact, the children learn how to read and write in the reading school, which is the beginning of this traditional education. Well, today you even see the girls joining this reading school. And then, these traditional schools have different purposes. So, of course, the main purpose is to prepare the clergy and, of course, the future professors, teachers of these traditional schools. So, in fact, to become a deacon or a priest, you have to learn all these hymns and chants by heart, and for this you have what you call the Degwa school. And this is, I speak of all these schools in my last book on traditional teaching of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, which came out, published by Lied Verlag in Germany in 2023. Right. So you have the school of Zema and Aquaquam, and I think that everybody knows in Ethiopia what Aquaquam is, chanting and movements. Foreigners speak of dance, but in the context of the Ethiopian church, they don't like to speak of dances because it's not a religious approach of what Aquaquam is. Then you have the school of poetry or Kenebate, and then to become a priest or a deacon or a priest, you go to this school of Degwa and Zema and Aquaquam. Then you have the school of Kene, that is the school of poetry. And there you study also Gaze language, because this was your question. And you study many verbs and then many words, because in order to produce a good Kene, your vocabulary must be very rich in order to be very fruitful in the composition of your Kene or poem. But in those schools, you have very young boys. They just go to study the language, Gaze. But only a few will continue and study Kene. Some do it for many years and become experts, in the composition of Kene. And then they can compose these Kenes at the time of the church festivals, like now at the time of Meskel. There will be in the large churches where you have good composers, they will compose special Kenes, poems
for those
for
events,
Meskel,
for Mescal, they have become the
for this
masters.
event,
Right.
And then the most intellectual, let's say, school is the school of books, which is the commentary of the Old Testament, the New Testament, the books of the church fathers, and the books of the monks. And for each school of Old Testament, New Testament, the books of the church fathers and books of the monks, then you have commentaries which are taught in these schools. And this is like a theological school, you see, and there, this type of school is only for more learned young men.
That's the ultimate
Yes.
Education.
Yes, exactly. We must say that in traditional education in the past, they were teaching also about art and calligraphy, iconography, and even handicraft. And handicraft, let's think of the crosses, because you have to be able to make these wooden or metallic crosses. So you had special places to learn how to make these handicrafts, And these are, we shall discuss this,
Right.
This is important to be continued for the life of the church of today and of the future, of course.
Who are the students? How do they get there?
Any boy can go, Of course, you don't have women because, as I just explained, this school is for the future clergy, deacons and priests, and also for the future professors. So this cannot be performed by women. So women can only be accepted and can also be teachers today in the Kennedy School. So you have several nuns in particular. I have met some in some monasteries, also in Aksum and in Bahadar, some young nuns who are teaching Kene in a Kene school, either in a parish or in a monastery.
But this is largely for men, right?
Yes.
For men.
Yes.
So these are men largely from rural areas, correct?
No, it can be in any place because you have traditional schools in any large parish, in Ethiopia. So it can be also in small towns or large cities, or even in some large monasteries. It depends, because some places are specialized for teaching some of these school. What is, for example, for graduation, the students go to Bethlehem. For Degwa, they go to Debre Abai. This is a monastery. For Kedase, they go to Gondar for the School of Books and Andanta and the School of Aquaquam. They also go, the main place is Gondar. And for Kene, the usual places were in Wallo, today mainly in Washera. So Washera is just a village, you know, and other places are monasteries or large places like Gondar. So it's mixed.
So teaching is orally, right, Dan? Orally?
Yes.
Unless
So
unless you reach
everything
that
is
that
taught.
ultimate education or training.
Well, even that, well, they are reading the texts, of course, of the Andemta, of the commentary,
They
but
have to memorize,
all
right?
this
It's from
is
memory.
learned. They have to memorize. Yes, they have to memorize everything. And for which reasons we can understand that in the past there were not so many manuscripts, you know, because the manuscript, it was very expensive to pay for a manuscript, and even today. And now, even today, I have visited many, many traditional schools, and it's very rare that some students can buy one, two, or three books, and they are very proud of owning their own books.
Yeah.
But until today, a book is expensive. And then, of course, why to learn by heart? Well, for instance, you have to know all the prayers by heart.
Right.
Because also remember where not only when you are in church, but also when you are at home. Then in the past there was no electricity, and even today in some faraway villages. And of course, then you can pray at any time and also anywhere when you know the prayers by heart. So of course, this is very important.
Right. So the training, goes on for years and years on end, right?
Well, it depends. You know, if you want to be just a simple deacon, then it would not take so much time, maybe 2 or 3 years. Of course, if you want to the Kenny school, it will take more years. Or if you go, as I said, to these schools of the books, then many more years. In fact, you know, when you want to be a very good composer of Kenne, you have to go also to the school of the books, because this will give you material to be able to compose a rich Kenne or poem, you know. So these schools are connected. And I have met some people who have studied for 35 years, like Memher Dawid Behanu. And when I was speaking with teachers who have passed away, who were very famous, they told me that, you know, each of them had studied for decades. So, of course, this is very difficult maybe to understand for the young people of today, but this was the reality, that they spent so many years for learning. They gave all their life and energy also for teaching, because, you know, the church life was the everything important for them, and they would dedicate all their life to serve the church, you know, teaching and learning, learning and teaching.
But is that the case today?
Well, I would say from my observation now, I have visited Ethiopia for about 40 years, and I must say that I have seen changes. I have seen that it is difficult for the young generation to think that they would spend so many years just for learning and becoming, you know, a very good scholar. In fact, the best scholars are called the four-eyed, meaning that they know everything, you know. And they were considered, these great scholars, you know, like libraries. I remember one day in Debre Libanos, I wanted to meet some scholars, and the monk said, "Oh, what you are doing with your interviews is very important," because he said, "We had a great scholar, he passed away some weeks ago, and we have nothing from him, you know, we have not taped him." This is what I'm doing when I'm meeting some traditional teachers. And he said he was like a library, and now he passed away, and the library burned. You see? So
Wow.
this is why I think it's so important to tape and also to write down about traditional education, traditional schools, traditional teachers, because we must not lose this great tradition of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. This is a wonderful cultural heritage, and I think that this should also be recognized by UNESCO. We see it in Paris, but I think they have people in Addis Ababa who should take this traditional education into consideration in the future.
Well, thank you very much, Christian, for your thoughts. It was a pleasure having you on my show again. Thank you very much indeed, and have a Mescal.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and happy feast of Mescal to